Two state budgets today, and they were both pretty shocking. The New South Wales budget delivered by the brand new Treasurer and convener of the left, never forget it, Matt Keane, hoping that it's a stepping stone to him becoming either the Liberal Party leader in opposition or Premier before the next election. The Queensland budget was full of broken promises and some bizarre new taxes on business. I'll get to that one in a second. But as you know, we are on the other side of the pandemic when all governments need to pull their heads in. But because the one in New South Wales thinks that they're going to lose the election, and why wouldn't they? They're almost in their 12th year in government. They have decided to spend, how's this, $27 billion on top of everything that they've already spent on hospitals, schools and all the rest of it. You've seen a campaign from the New South Wales government for weeks, as if it was a federal election campaign, about their different announcements that they're going to be putting in place, including ones where they want to give themselves a gold star for introducing an extra year of kindergarten, but that policy doesn't actually kick in till 2030, which is after the, not this one, but the next state election, where they would be going into their 16th year of government. Matt Keane, of course, thinks that he can do what no Liberal Treasurer can do, and that is somehow get people who hate the Liberal Party to vote for the Liberal Party.
There are a number of structural and cultural barriers that still stand in the way of women being able to fully participate in our economy. We're looking to remove those barriers. That's why we're spending record amounts in childcare. We know that participation rates between men and women are about equal till about the age of 25. And then the gap widens as women have children.
Now, the reality is that deficits get way bigger, but magically everything will be a surplus in a couple of years' time. It won't be. But buried inside the detail of the budget today were promises that have already been made, decisions that have already been taken by this New South Wales government. When, yes, it had a different Transport Minister, different Premier and a different Treasurer, but they were all still sitting around the cabinet table before they played musical chairs. There is a hope for a brand new train line to go underneath Sydney Harbour. The cost of that has blown out by $6 billion. Now, one story that the New South Wales government does have to tell that is better than most in my living memory in New South Wales is that they have actually built things. But let's not muck around. When the things that you build are blowing out by $6 billion, you don't have extra money to try to buy votes. And then there's this scheme, which in all honesty is actually about introducing land tax, a higher land tax forever, but it's being sold to you as a drop in stamp duty specifically for first home buyers. Now, this is how Matt Keane explains the buy now, pay later scheme.
What we want to do is stand on the side of first homeowners in New South Wales. We want to make it as easy as possible to access their own slice of the great Australian dream. I mean, owning your own home is owning a stake in our nation. And what this reform does is lower the threshold or the barriers to entering the property market.
No, it's snake oil salesmanship. The New South Wales government will say up front that they're going to lose revenue, but they actually get more in the long term. Now, it's a little difficult to calculate and show you on the screen because this is about land tax as opposed to stamp duty that you pay on the sticker price of the house that you buy. But put simply, in about 11 and a half years in the buy now, pay later, you will have paid the amount of money that you paid up front. So guess what happens when you live in the 12th, 13th, 25th or 30th year in the same house? You will be paying way more in the long term than you were going to pay in the short term. Now, again, this is all very attractive to the people who write clickbait stories on news websites who are mostly in their 20s and understandably go, it's a lot of money to buy a house. But let's be very clear. We're talking about thousands of dollars extra tax a year that you would have to pay on a property. God forbid you got divorced, somebody got sick, your partner left you, you would be left in a scenario where you still had to fork out thousands of dollars. Because I'll tell you also what the real idea behind the policy is. Apart from finding a new way to spread out the amount of money and end up, like any sort of credit operation, getting more money in the long run. What they want you to do is to sell your house after your kids have grown up. So the great Australian dream for Matt Keane is that you start off in a one-bedroom unit and you end in a one-bedroom unit. Because otherwise, how will any pensioner be able to afford maybe $6,000 a year on land tax? Notice how they sell it, because pay attention to it. A bloke who will not fall for this is the man who could be Premier in March of next year, and I think based off this budget is a good chance of it. Chris Minns is the Labor leader who gets exactly what this con is.
I don't know why he wouldn't extend those exemptions to capture more people that are entering the housing market so that they can pay less or no land tax as a result of changes, stamp duty, rather than introducing an entire land tax regime that for some families, if they don't bother selling their property or they've bought their dream house, will extend forever. On the 12th or 13th year, you're paying way more than you would have if you just accepted the stamp duty figure up front.
That's why I call it snake oil salesmanship. They didn't have the balls to turn around and say that we are changing land tax. Instead, they sell it as you won't have to pay this tax up front because we're replacing it with one that will cost you more in the long run.